Hi there, David here from daviddumaisaudio.com, and in this video, I'll be doing a redesign of the storm rifle gun from the video game Halo. So what I'd actually like to do in this video is to listen to the original audio from the game, and then listen to my redesign, and then go over my entire redesign layer by layer, how I created it, how I processed it, and go over some other techniques and things that I thought about as I was creating the gun sound. Before we actually jump into the project though, if you're new here, like I said before, my name's David, and if you are a sound designer who likes to create sound effects, then I have a free little gift for you. It is my 5 layering techniques guide. It's a little PDF that I put together of 5 different layering techniques that I use all the time, and I know a lot of other professionals use it. I've seen other people use it. So these are really kind of core 5 layering techniques that you can use to create sound effects, and they're absolutely free. I'll put the link in the description below for this little guide. All right, let's get into our project. All right, so we are here inside of my project, inside of Reaper. And so like I said before, let's start off by listening to the original audio from the video game, and then I'll do my redesign. So this is the original audio. Let's have a listen. One more time. All right, and now let's have a listen to the redesign. And there you have it. All right, so before we actually jump into the individual layers and everything, I'm just going to quickly show you my session, how I have it set up. It's not super clean, but yeah, let's just go over it so we know what we're looking at here. So at the top here, we have our reload, our overheating and reload layers. So that's all up here. Down here, I have the gunshot layers. So I have 3 different layers here. I have my a riser. I put it as my mech layer. It's supposed to be a mechanical layer. It ended up being a riser. And then I have my 2 other layers here that I make up of the gun. So that's kind of how the session is set up. So why don't we start right at the beginning here with the layer. So let's start off with this first layer here. All right, so let's have a listen to it, and then I'll talk about how I created it. So my idea when I first started to design this gun is that I wanted to follow what the original gun was doing. So if we listen to the original gun, I actually was hearing 2 things. One is that right at the beginning, you have this thump layer that slowly fades away. And then you have this top mechanical layer that just stays there throughout and is consistent throughout the entire sound. So I'm just going to play it here from the beginning, and let's see if you can actually hear it, hear what I'm talking about here. Just going to remove my layer here. Right, so if I started here right at the end, that sound is very different from. Right, so you'll need some good speakers or headphones to be able to hear those lower frequencies. But basically here you have some sort of thump or low bass punch layer, and then it slowly fades out as the shots go and as the gun overheats. And so that's what I was trying to do for my layer here. So my first layer here was going to be this high mechanical layer. So that's what this is. So how did I create this? So I actually used Faceplant to do this. And what I did is I imported my own sound. This is what I call my sampling sound design. But basically it's just this longer file that I create of just like really weird sounds and effects and things like that I process that don't really make sense. But when you import them into like a sampler, and then you can scan through it and then find them like really cool little pieces and stuff that works really well. So what I did is I imported the sound in here, and then I always have an LFO that has that is made for the transient, and then I assign that to the pitch. I assign that to the cutoff of various filters, and yeah, that's basically it. So let's have a listen here. And if you want to know more about like my process for doing this, I actually made a full like in-depth video, and I'll probably put it in the cards above if you're interested in seeing it. But this is basically how I created this. And now I can just go through this file here, and I can like find some sounds that I like, export them, and then put them into my project. So that's how I created this. One more thing I'll just mention here is a thing that I found that was really cool is to have a Haas effect and assign the modulating the delay here with the LFO for the same LFO for the pitch. So I assign this LFO to the Haas here, And then what that does is it creates this like really wide sound, and then it kind of narrows as the shot goes. So if I take it off, this is what it sounds like. So it's very kind of like centered in your face, which is fine. But then with this, I don't know. I like the effect that it creates. It's just like really wide, and then it kind of narrows in as the shot goes. So, yeah. So that's how I created this layer. And honestly, like if you look at my layers, like there's no processing or anything. All I did was I copied it and pasted it and put it on a new track. And yeah, no processing or anything. If I look here, a bit of recenter. I think, yeah, this is the only plugin I actually use for this layer. And all I was doing here is I wanted to really center the lower frequencies. So that's what I'm doing with this mono filter here. So everything below 127.4 is going to get monoed. And then I just brought in the width a little bit. So if I actually take this off and we listen to it, that's the sound that I started with. And then I put this on. Actually, this one more time, and then I'll switch it on without talking in between. Right, so it just focuses the sound a little bit more, and I like the result I was getting with that. So that's how I got this layer here, and that's basically it. And this is my mechanical layer, I guess, if you will, or the higher frequency layer that I was going for. All right, let's move on here to our thump layer, and let's have a listen. And if you remember what we just talked about here about the original, how the bass, the thump is kind of present at the beginning and then slowly fades away. So what I was trying to do here is a similar concept, but I was trying to pitch it down until it kind of went down to nothing. But what I found that ended up working is actually just pitching it down over time until it was less noticeable in the sound. So let's actually see. I'm going to remove the processing. I actually really only did some manipulator and some gain here, but let's listen without anything on. This is the sound here. And again, the way I created this, very simple. Inside of Faceplant, again, same idea, same concept here. Even using this patch, I could probably find something similar in the way I created it. So let's have a listen here. So I might have used a different sound file. I don't remember exactly if it was this exact patch that I created this thump layer with. But basically, I'm playing like really low on my keyboard right now, and I'm just trying to find something that could have a really bassy sound. I might even increase the LFO here. Like something like that is pretty good. Right, and that's the concept about how I created that sound. So with that, then I could export it and bring it out into here, and that's how I got this sound. It sounds like I probably put a filter or something like that on here. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, that's how I created it. Okay, so once I had that, then my next task was to basically let it bring it down in pitch over time, or bring it slowly fade it out. So what I did is I added manipulator on here. And if we look here, there's two things I did with manipulator. So one, I'm going to move these around here so we can see. All right, so the first thing I did here is to lower the formant. So the formant is pitching down over time. So let's have a listen to that. And you can see here it's going down. And then I thought that was okay, but I still felt like it was too the thump. That layer was too prevalent in context with the other layer. So if I played it together with this, it didn't really change over time, at least not enough to my liking. So the next thing I did is instead of just like fading it out completely and just losing that layer, what I did is I added some detune to the sound over time. So it slowly increased the detune, and if you listen, it kind of got rid of the transient of this thump layer. So let's have a listen here. So really kind of distorted and detuned that transient of this thump layer, which made it less prevalent, but still present in the sound. Right, and then the last thing I did was just a bit of gain automation here, just lowered it a little bit. This here is already at the end of the sound, like there's nothing actually happening here, so it's just really just lowering it just a little bit, just to balance it out with the other frequencies here, with the other layer, sorry. So now, that's pretty much it. Like this is it for this layer. So if I play it now together with this one, this is what we have so far. Right, and you can hear it slowly disappearing, and that's just because of the formant going down, but a lot of it has to do with the detuning here happening. Okay, So that is what I had so far to start. Next here, I was thinking of adding some sort of mechanical layer, but what I ended up doing is putting in a riser. So the riser was basically to signify that the gun was going to overheat, and also it had a double effect in that it was opposite motion of what the thump layer was doing. So the thump layer was going down in pitch, and then the riser was going up in pitch. And whenever you do this opposite motion, you always create this nice effect where it kind of it really accentuates that something is about to happen. So for this, in this case, in this instance, is really foreshadowing that the gun is going to overheat. So it's really bringing that out. So let's have a listen to this, and then I'll talk about how I created it. So that's the riser, and let's take off everything. So basically this is just a recording I did at my house. I had some workers here, and they were drilling, and this is just a recording I did of myself in the basement, and this is what I got. Right, so it's just a drill. It's kind of a distant recording, but it's fine. And then let's see what I did here. So I added manipulator. And manipulator, I think, is just in this instance here, in this case, is just playing with the format. So I think it's just going up in pitch. So that's what's creating the riser. Next, I added an EQ here, and this is just filtering the top portion, and then it's kind of opening up as the sound goes along, because I didn't really want it to have it present at the beginning of the shots firing. I still want it to be there, but I wanted it to be more felt than heard. So it's still there. I'm cutting out a lot of the highs, and then it's slowly opening up as the shots go on. Right, so I didn't want it to be a gain thing. Like I didn't want to cut out the beginning and then slowly fade it in. I really wanted to still feel present. So that's why I used a filter instead. Next, I added a flanger, and this is just to add a bit of more sci-fi motion in the sound, if you will. Okay, and that's it. So that's how I created this sound. So now all together with the other layers, we have this. Right, and that is the core, that is the sound. that is my redesign for the gunshot portion of the sound. So next, let's move on to this reload, overheating, reload, and overheating and reload of the gun. So let's have a listen. All right, so for this, I used a lot of like glitchy sounds that I had already created. So I kind of dragged and dropped stuff into here. So I don't exactly remember how I created each one of these, but I'll go over them anyway so you can have a listen to how I layer them together. So this is the first layer. So again, something very sci-fi and just kind of explosive to kind of show that the gun is at its breaking point, if you will, or overheating point. Then I layered that with this. And this was actually the main layer that I wanted to hear because it's a very mechanical sound. It had a very mechanical sound to it, which I really like. It kind of shows like the gun opening up, which is really cool. And then I'm sending the signal from this sound here into this one here in Track Spacer, just so it's not masking. So I didn't want this first layer to mask this second layer. I really wanted the second layer to be the reference point. So together I had this. And if I take off Track Spacer, it would have sounded like this. It's still okay. I didn't need it to be so present. This layer was a bit too much body to it. All right, let's go on to our next layer here. So this one was cool because when I was listening to the original audio, it had this really cool character sound to the gun when it was reloading. So let's have a listen. Right, to me, it almost sounded like there was like some sort of creature or something. Like it's like a creature growl or something. So the gun had a lot of character in that sense, and I kind of wanted to replicate that in my own way. So that's what this layer here is doing. And what it is, I also try to layer it with the spinning of whatever part of the gun that is, the barrel, or I don't even know what this is. There's like this spinning part here, and so what I'm trying to do is kind of line it up with that. It's not exactly perfect, but I think it still kind of worked with the gun. And then of course you have your higher frequency stuff, which matches because it's like because there's like electricity going on. So, all right, so those are the three kind of the three mechanical portions of the gun overheating sound. Once I had that in place, then my next idea was to add electricity sounds. And you'll see so far, like I haven't really done any kind of processing except for that first track spacer. All right, so let's look at this first electricity sound. By the way, these next two sounds here, the electrical sounds are from my sound pack that I created. It's just the Magic sound pack. So I just kind of dragged and dropped them in here. And that's how it sounds. There's that one. And then I had this one here. And together. And that's pretty much it. So for this one, I did a bit of processing. So I used M Transformer, and I like to use M Transformer. I mean, it's good for a lot of things. You have a lot of really cool presets. But for this one, I like to use the frequency shaping preset, and then I can move like these dots in this grid here, and it changes the frequency, the sound of the frequency of the audio file. So I can kind of dial it into where I like it. So if I take this off, this is what the sound sounded like just from the original audio. And then with it on. So it's a bit wider, a bit more sparkly, I guess, if you will. I'm not sure. Anyways, but I really like the sound I was doing, and then it layered well with this one. So that was my gun overheating. So these three together. So once I had that, then I moved on to this next layer here, which is this one. Let's have a listen to this. Yeah, so this is kind of like a riser, and it's just a reload, a sound to signify that the gun is reloading and it is ready to go. And this is just a power up, again, from another sound pack that I created from my UI sound pack. So I dragged and dropped this in here. I also have manipulator on here. So let's have a listen. Yeah, so it's not even modulating or anything. It's just I brought the format down. So without it, sounds cool. This I thought was a bit more appropriate for the size of the weapon that we're dealing with here. All right, after that, I think, yeah, so these two here were muted, so I wasn't actually using these, just more experimenting with them. And then I had this layer here. And this is my reload, like the reload sound. And what's interesting about this layer is it's actually the exact same layer that I had up here, this one here. So I just duplicated it. I brought it down here so that I could still match that same sound from the overheating with the reload. So what I did is I just cut off the entire file until the end. And at the end, I had this really cool sound like this. And all I did is I put some manipulator on here just to bring the pitch down so it's not exactly the same. I did a bit of alternator as well. And then recenter just to make sure the bass is monoed. And that's it. So if I take these off, this is what I had. And I put it on. Right, so it's a bit, it's a nice mechanical sound, and then it relates that gun sound to the reload that I had up here from before. All right, after that, this one's soloed out, muted. Okay, next I had these sounds, and these are just some reload mechanical sounds. So, and if you are interested in knowing how I created this, I'll actually put a link in the cards above because I made a whole video about this, how I created these and how you can do just using objects around your house. And yeah, but this is just some mechanical sounds from things I recorded around my house, layered them together. I don't think there's any processing going on them, except for this one here, a bit of manipulator on this bottom one here. So I pitched it down quite a bit. But apart from that, that's it. So yeah, track spacer on this one, probably to not have this mask these layers here, but that's it. So now, with all of these in place, let's listen to this overheat and reload. And that is it. So it's a pretty simple setup. Like I just had 3 layers here for the gunshot, and then the most complicated part, I guess, was down here, was the overheat and the reload, and just finding the right sounds for this. But once I had the right sounds, it's not so much. Like I didn't do too much processing to them. It's just a matter of layering them, balancing them, doing a bit of processing with. I like to use manipulator whenever I'm doing like sci-fi stuff, just because it's really good for that. Just making sure that the layers are not clashing in terms of frequency content. Like if they have something at one frequency, make sure I put the pitch down. Like for the next file, I put the pitch down or up so that they don't clash. But apart from that's pretty much it. So let's have a listen one more time to the entire thing, and listen to the original, and then I'll play my version, and then we'll go from there. All right, so that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. You found it useful and valuable and hopefully insightful and maybe learned something along the way. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave them down in the comments below. I always read everything and do my best to answer them whenever I can. And yeah, just a reminder to grab that free guide, the 5 layering techniques guide. Links will be in the description. And I think that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.